Recording is going to be about Java classes, objects, and references. Let's start by creating a new project, a Java project. Command line template, sure. That'll give us a main. And we'll call it objects. Okay. So we see that we have one class. In our source, we have main.java, which has our public static main method. And we'll do a system out. Hello. IntelliJ autosaves, we'll run main, and we have a program. There it is. Hello, right there. All right, let's collapse this output screen. Now I'm going to create two objects, or two classes. Multiple objects, but two classes. I'm going to create a person class, and the person's going to have an address. Okay, so let's begin. What we do is we highlight source by clicking on it, right click, new Java class. Let's start with address. So now we see we have over here under source, we have a main class and an address class. Address, let's say it has a string street, string city, a string which is the state, and a string which is the zip. Okay, there we go. Later we'll learn about encapsulation and making those private so that you just can't access them, but right now we'll just leave them with that visibility, which you don't know what I'm talking about, but let's continue. How about a constructor to new up an object from this class? So let's right click in this class, let's right click, generate constructor, and let's choose all of the fields. All right, now we have an address where when we create it, we'll pass in all these values, and this dot, the street that we get passed in here, this line 11, the street we pass in as parameter will be assigned the street on line 5 with the this dot notation. This dot says I want to assign it to the instance variable. That's what happens. This is called shadowing. We have a street parameter and we have a street variable. So in this constructor right here, this street is the parameter that gets passed in. And when we want to say go set the instance variable, we have to do this dot to differentiate it from the parameter street. And that's true for all four of these. All four of these parameters are shadowing the instance variables. So that's the way we set the instance variables from the parameter. A very common pattern you'll see in Java in constructors. Okay, now let's go and right click on source and say new Java class person. In person, let's give person a first name and a string for the last name. But let's also give it a reference to an address. Address. Okay, so you've seen these two things multiple times. This line 7 here, the variable name is address, and its type, or what its object is an address object. Okay, on line 5, the variable name is first name, and its type is string. The same thing for line 6. Its variable name is last name, its type is string. But line 7, the variable name is address, and its type is address with a capital A, which means it's of the other class. So in main, what we do is we take those blueprints, those class blueprints, and we use the new keyword, and we create instances of those objects. So when we create an instance of person, we can have the first name be John, the last name Doe, and then we can create a second instance of person with a whole different name, and the two live in memory, but the variables hold the different values for the different names. All right, so let's do person, person. Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to person, and let's generate a constructor for it. Generate constructor, all three. Boom. Okay. And you see this dot pattern here again when the parameter shadows the variable. All right, back to main. Person equals new person. And we need to pass it an address. So let's create an address first. Address equals new address. And for address, let's see, the street will be 123 Main Street. The city will be Nashville. State, Tennessee. I assume TN is the abbreviation. And the zip will be 12345. I don't know what the real zip is. Now we have address. Let's call this address 1. Address 1 is a reference to an address. Person, we'll call this person 1. Person 1 equals new person, and person 1's first name is going to be John. Last name is going to be Doe. And the address is going to be a reference to the address that we create. Oh, address 1. It's going to be a reference. We're going to use the reference that we created on line 6 to the object and pass it as the argument to the person constructor. So the person constructor, the third parameter, needs a reference to an address. In main, we created address 1 as a reference to an address when we newed up this address, and we're passing that as the third argument. All right, let's do a little printout on person. Let's go to person and let's create a method. Let's create a method called print me. Oh, it's going to return nothing. And it's going to do a system out. Person, first name, last name, I probably have to put a, yeah, I did, good for me. And address. All right, let's take this sucker, this print me, and let's put it in address, and we'll do the same thing here in address. Print me is going to say address street city state. And zip. All right, now let's go back to person. And in our print me here, we say the person's first name is first name, last name is last name, and the address is, and let's call address dot print me, and that'll call the print me method on address. And once I did it, it did not like it. What? Oh, don't need a semicolon there. Person first name plus last name plus address dot print me, and it'll tell me what the error is. Operator plus cannot be, oh, void. So it's not returning this. Okay, let's move this address.printme out. Okay, so we're going to do a system out on person's first name, last name, and then we're going to say and then we're going to do a printout on address, and then we're going to call the printme method in address, which will print it itself out. Okay, address says, okay, I'm going to do a system out on my stuff. Now in main, let's do person1.printme, and it should print all the information for person 1. There it is. Person, first name is John, last name is Doe, address is Street 123 Main Street, city is Nashville, state is Tennessee, zip is that. Now, if we go ahead and we do this again, let's rinse, lather, and repeat. Let's take this person 1 and let's do an address 2 and a person 2 now. Address 2 is going to be, instead of, let's make it 33 High Street, and let's make it in Austin, Texas, 23234, whatever, I don't know what that is. And person 2, the reference to person 2, how about Jane Doe, his sister, happens to live in that. Now see this right here on line 11? If we create person 2 and we pass the reference to address 1, Jane Doe is going to be living in Nashville. So we have to change this to reference address 2. And now Jane Doe is going to be in Austin. And here, if we didn't change this person 1 print me, we would still get the printout of John Doe. Let's do that. On line 12, before changing this reference to person 2, let's leave it as person 1. And we'll see John Doe get printed twice. First name John Doe, person John Doe. That's now on line 12. On line 12, let's change this to reference. Oh, I just did something. I don't know what I did. Don't know where my mouse was. Here we go. Let's change this to reference person 2. And in IntelliJ, I can click this green arrow over here to run it again. So we see here, person John Doe, address Nashville, and now we see a person Jane Doe, address Austin. And that is how we create, on line 6, we create an object from a class. Its reference is address 1. On line 7, we create a reference to a person by newing up the person. On line 10, we create another address, but a different address. And on line 11, we create a different person. And that is how we take classes, we new them up, and the instance variables of the classes are unique for each one. And to repeat, the instance variables for address are street, city, state, zip, And the instance variables for person are first name, last name, and a reference to address.